Chapter 56 to 57. Lewd Chapter 2. A Duty Against Stress. Warning, as the title said, it's lewds, and if you are not into this kind of stuff / are a minor, then don't read it because it's pretty spicy. Scathach knew she had struck gold the moment Maya decided to approach her a few days ago with good news. Sure, she had been skeptical that she could have brought to attention anything damning towards Joseph to actually do something about her attraction for him, but then she delivered a few letters she had been incredibly unaware about. Letters that spoke of a few doubts the young king has been having over his firm position about the opposition he raised towards her advances. A hint of embarrassment that all stemmed off from a very unexpected event that unfolded last time the couple had been seen around King Arthur and his wife. A foursome. Joseph had engaged in a foursome in his first extraconjugal sexual interaction with two other women. The scandalous detail just stirred in the lance-wielding witch a feeling of irritation close to nothing she ever felt before. But that dissatisfaction faltered before the other letters which suggested any effort from Maya to actually open up to both her and the little Roman imp regarding any interesting opportunity. To Scathach's surprise, he had shown interest for her, but less so for Lucy. Which was reasonable considering how blunt of an individual the redhead was at times. Heck, just to give her mercy the former Scottish queen had to tie her up and turn her in her most honest state of being, a submissive girl that was just after one and one thing alone. And that was getting touched from the one that defeated her months ago. Quite amusing, but terribly intense due to how loudmouthed the brat was. Hence why her subdued self looked extremely more delicious than anything she could have offered when unbound. Once the trap was set up and things were ready to go, Scathach prepared by one of the upper corners of the bedroom, calmly waiting as Lucy happily rested under the sheets of the only bed in the whole room. A few minutes passed, then Joseph finally arrived. He was at ease, his senses had failed to pick her presence much to her relief and, he noticed Lucy. He approached slowly as he unsheathed his sword and seemed ready to strike in case it was a foe, but the hint of surprise on his face told her all. Soon the door closed by Scathach's own intervention and the young man turned to see her glowing gaze shining through the shadows surrounding them. A nervous look, a look of realization rising just now within his expression as he could pick up the vibe presented by the state of undress Lucy was in. Scathadash he tried to say, but his teacher was faster and rather unwilling to listen to any excuses. I spoke with Maya, and she worried that due to her conditions you were receiving less attention than usual. An issue that, truth be told, is quite troublesome with a stressful duty as yours, Joseph, the woman interjected and smoothly explained. Alas, I saw fit to employ myself and my current ward to make sure to make your stress go away. Don't I get to choose? Her smile didn't falter. In fact, it strengthened as soon as he dared himself to say that. Well, if you so believe I'm wrong, I'm more than happy to engage in a tedious and deadly battle to abate your stress and perhaps beat you into submission for breaking your wife's kind heart, the woman rebuked confidently, two gebalgs appearing by her hands and... That's not much fair, he argued adorably, and Scathach could only chuckle in amusement at how silly he was. The weak defense was born from the very doubts that had beseeched him to ponder about the current state of things. A little liar that needed some more teaching from the looks of it. And Scathach was more than happy to dispense a more than sufficient lesson on how to be honest in that regard. Nothing is much fair in love and war, foolish student of mine. Especially when your wife is such a caring woman and wants only your best. She was soon upon him, a dazzling smile on her lips as she felt so close for once. So close and so drunk by such a feat. No running from trouble, Joseph, Scathach said as she dashed swiftly and stopped in front of him. She could see his flight mindset take over and took steps to prevent any effort to bail from this matter. You asked for it. And you know it. Warm lips pressed against his and, before he could say more, he found myself thrown into the mattress, with Lucy taking the chance to jump onto him. An impressive feat considering how tied up she was and how tight the rope seemed to be around her body. She even managed to pull down the cloth holding her rasped voice muffled, with her lips instantly striking the moment to steal a ferocious kiss from the king. The eagerness was something Scathach was to blame about. After all, she decided to give an incentive to the silly girl by teasing her a bit before the occasion. The way she was leaving a pool of her own juices by his pants was proof of that. Maya told us that you were thinking of this. And that you didn't have it in you to break it up to us personally, Scathach said as she helped the tied-up Roman overwhelm the nervous young man for a while. So, I will personally help you with this. First, I will allow this little slave some allowance since she had been so subservient, and then I will think to do something about you myself. In a normal situation, had this been a one-on-one lesson, Scathach wouldn't have been hesitating in throwing her lot into the bed and dominated it entirely. She was the most experienced in the whole room and she was also terribly horny and in need of retribution for the previous rejection. Yet, she ultimately chose to let the little whelp to get a chance in going first with him. Not because she was feeling any mercy, but rather because she knew she wasn't going to last for long. Once Joseph was completely sold to this whole situation, that this couldn't be avoided, he was soon thrown into the fray with nothing much but a need to not be buried by the women's combined approach. With his pants lowered and his length revealed, Lucy's current demeanor turned from aggressive to docile. After all, it was finally time for her to lose her virginity. The reason why Scathach felt the need to put air quotes on such a word was tied to how that wasn't exactly a thing with the redhead. Not when her hymen broke while going around most of northern France while riding her horse. The jumping, the harshness of the saddle, there were many factors, but none had generally given her a chance to keep that hint of purity to herself. Yet now her first time wouldn't necessarily be a horribly painful thing for her. It took Joseph a single tap with his cock head right at the wet slit belonging to Lucy for the girl to start begging to get plowed by him. He didn't even let her go for too long. His tool was instantly plunging deep in the young woman's pussy. Lucy gasped, but the noise was less of surprise and more driven by pleasure. Eyes wide open, and lips suddenly conquered by the king's own eager kiss. A blink, and Scathach witnessed how much the young man had to show to his current partners and to her. She slowly undressed as the two went on with this, barely catching on the way the monarch easily outmatched the redhead through stamina and roughness. Hitting all the right spots, Lucy looked elevated within the moment as her moans filled the room due to how intense the pounding was. Her walls held strongly onto the length that was thrusting into her, shifting and stretching to favor it a better entry while also keeping that comfortable and warm hold within its folds. The Roman slut's eagerness didn't falter, not even for a moment, and her dedication was rewarded with multiple orgasms that were outlived by the soon-to-come cream pie. The girl's cries intensified when cum finally filled her cunt with enough baby batter to put a bun or two in the oven. A shame Scathach may have willingly put runes on her to prevent fertilization. While the girl had been incredibly helpful, the last thing she needed was for her to behave irrationally with a big pregnant belly to cause more issues than usual. Lucy was out of the count after just a single round. Her first time, it definitely had been memorable from the crazed look on her face that just asked for a moment to catch her break. More like falling asleep on the spot while cum still poured out of her naughty hole. Of course, now it was Scathach's time to shine and she knew it quite well. That was most excellent, but I hope you understand that's not the last part of it. He didn't seem to have missed that, but where his gaze was briefly lacking the same ferocity he showed with Lucy, that flame wasn't exactly gone as soon as the former queen shifted onto the mattress. She was instantly taken over by him, or rather, she allowed him to take her over as he pushed her onto the bed, crawling over her as he didn't outright fuck her. No, there was a situation where Scathach actually hated Joseph because of what he did before pounding her like Lucy. He started to tease her, but in such a way that she could only feel contempt, love and yet arousal at the same time. It was absurd. How could anyone hate mere teasing? And yet it wasn't the kind of hate that was tied to the physical take on the matter. It was deeper and tied to inner issues that had been previously thought long forgotten. Why does he have to behave this romantic about it? A blush adorned the Lady of Shadow's face at the way he was going at it. The way he carelessly suckled her nipples, grasped her tits and groped her ass and hips. Scathach may have been experienced in bed, but there was something that just didn't feel right. She was aware of his stamina, but she had for a while doubted his skills in terms of approach. He was good, not the best or even close to perfect, but the way he was soon upon her just stirred in her emotions she had long buried. Her heart was beating louder than it had in many centuries now, her body was warmer than she had ever felt under the solace of bed-related kinship. Sure, Joseph wasn't as mighty as Siyu Chulin in conquering women, but there was something more meaningful through the novice way he did so. It was slow, tedious, and it was doing something to her. A moan emerged from her mouth, her noises getting louder the more attention her needy bits were. Scathach was confused, extremely so. She shouldn't be feeling anything more than just aroused and relieved, and yet something ached from within her chest, and then it became apparent what it was all about when the kiss ended and an almost breathless confession came through from Joseph. I love you. 3 words. These stinging words resonated deep with the kind of unease that had slowly tapped at the rear of her mind every time he saw him with Maya. The love, the care, the genuine approach to what was meant to be a holy union. Her readings of some of the biblical tales left her to ponder if love was indeed a thing that really mattered in the long run. Is that why she never latched onto her students? Sure, the woman loved them as apprentices she had fucked at times, but did it ever get romantic? Never. It just wasn't meant to be. Not when her duty bound her to unscathed, not when she didn't get the chance to be free at times that she now has. Joseph was a student of hers, yes, but differently from her disciples he was also someone that went beyond that. He didn't stop by seeing her as just his teacher. He went beyond that. Scathach, to him, was someone he loved. He loved so closely and so informally that it felt wrong for her to see him as just another student. This time it was different, and she no longer felt as old as she actually was. She felt her younger self. Her idealistic and youthful self, way before she had to concede to inhumanity for the sake of learning what great feat she now could manage with ease. How things would have been had he been around when I was but a hopeless monarch myself. That fleeting thought didn't matter. The present did, and in the present Joseph had decided to finally do it. His cock lined up and then thrusted deep into her. Now the penetration shattered any doubt that was left in that line of thoughts, and she felt instantly loved by the way he held onto her, so tightly and caring. She wrapped her legs around his waist in an effort to exert control over his pace, but he kept on hammering her up and down, slamming his cock so hard into her that her resolve just couldn't do much but crumble before the intense plowing. Her mind was mostly lost by the time he continued to fuck her after filling her once. He didn't stop, not for a moment, and she didn't hesitate in keeping up with him. She had more stamina, she had more hunger, but her desire to match up managed to burn away most of the excesses. It was a satisfying session, and yet she felt unwilling to part ways as she ended up under the sheets with him and a sleepy Lucy. The 3 of them cuddled together, loving each and every moment of that situation until the next morning. Of course, that wasn't just a one-night thing. Maya was still pregnant and she definitely was going to need more nights to relieve poor Joseph from his stress. And, from the way he was holding on to them, she was tempted to say he didn't mind the burden as much as he did hours earlier. End of lewd chapter. Wait, this isn't dash. You signed papers, Scathach muttered flatly, showing some documentation that I wasn't aware of. Or, at the moment, I didn't remember, as I think I may have seen those before. The action stopped, with Lucy picking up the files herself and reading those after putting on some glasses to heighten her sight. I, Joseph, King of Britannia, and husband to the most amazing and humbled Queen, Lady Myasville first of her name, thereby declare that I shall accept seduction offer from those that have passed the Queen's tests to gauge loyalty, preparation, and tact within paperwork duty whenever necessary. Lucy started to read out loud. Thus, by royal decree, I shall accept the Queen's advice when it is a matter of emergency such as keeping up with the stress of kingship that normally marriage would deal with in case the Queen is capable of fitting the duty. However, if the queen is unable to stand up for the duty, she can muster one or multiple individuals to replace her in the bedchamber's duties. Postscriptum. I ain't drunk, you are. The decree is quite clear, Scathach remarked with a smug look. Your fate is sealed, Joseph. Just accept it. Okay. Rejecting us now is wait, what? Lucy tried to come back at me but paused as she heard my resignation. Her glance now aimed at the puzzled former queen. He is just accepting it like that. I mean, as a king I'm expected to be more careful when I'm drunk, so I guess that's on me. I should have been more careful, I replied calmly, yet feeling a bit nervous as the lance-wielding woman standing over us looked less pleased with that answer. Wait, something isn't right, Scathach muttered with a confused tone. You never drink enough to get drunk. So that whole thing about being drunk during the signing of that paper is a lie. I didn't say I was drunk because of alcohol. I was drunk for love, I replied as cheesily as possible. Plus, Maya told me she had plans to use it only for cuddles-related affairs. Another lie, Maya told us that there was no innuendo within that paperwork, Lucy replied this time around, eyes narrowing on me. You wanted this to happen. The letters, the conversations about this situation Scathach's eyes widened as she realized what was up. You planned all of this? I don't know what you're talking about, I replied weakly. You planted hints and clues for us to see and notice through our investigation. You led us to the documents, Maya specifically told us about the papers and the letters, and then you let yourself be caught in such a manner, Scathach responded strongly. What do you have to say about yourself? All correct minus the Maya's bit. I actually didn't tell her to do that, I admitted. In fact, she also wanted that to happen on her own. This is. Lucy commented, failing to come up with words. Then Scathach spoke again. Not going to change anything, the woman replied with determination. It's sure intriguing, but the end goal is the same. Except now we shall make sure you pay for tricking us like that. Prepare yourself for it, Joseph. I just giggled at that. Yes, my real plan was coming to fruition. Yes, I knew it would have happened so earnestly, but I had also gotten through this idea with the notion of having them both work to do their best about it rather than just be hopeful to give something and expect for it to work. Love you too, I hummed, stunning both at once. Love you too, Scathach muttered back, blushing at the genuine comment. Love you too, Daddy, Lucy hummed, getting groans from both at the nickname. What? I didn't say anything wrong? Be quiet and do what I say, depraved pest, Scathach rebuked in frustration as she shoved the redhead against the confusing king that was Joseph. At least they ended up getting all they wanted out of this most unusual situation. But the way this came to be? Very bizarre to say the least.